So while we are talking about caricature, let's talk about human-animal hybrids. Okay, so this is a pretty common task to complete inside in the an animated content because obviously um, it's another form of caricature because it allows you to maybe take some character that's human and give them animal properties, maybe something that complements something that they already are, or to take an animal um, and which one did I say? Or an animal and give it human qualities, maybe something that complements the animal. They basically are both kind of doing the same thing. It's just you're merely pushing them into that direction, right? Particularly with um, Western animation, we there's a difference of the way that they approach, let's say, talking, dialogue. So Eastern animation, what they'll do is they actually animate the talking, and then they'll have a voice actor say the words afterwards. You might have noticed if you ever watch stuff that's subbed or dubbed, I can't remember, but it has a an English voiceover versus the original content. Neither one actually matches 100% because, like I said, they animate first, then they do the voice. American animation kind of does the opposite, where they will actually do the voices and then they'll animate to them. And one of the reasons is it allows the actor to kind of um, push the character, and then they can use it as a unifying factor and also as inspiration for the performance, as well as the design. So, for example, you can look at like Kung Fu Panda, right? So we have Jack Black in the center. And he's got a really big, kind of boisterous personality, and they infuse that inside of a panda, which I think is kind of interesting because it's somewhat the opposite of his personality. However, a panda does have a kind of slothness that Jack Black, his presence usually emits. But he's a very interesting character because, like, you think about him in general, he's a very active, aggressive, physical comedian. But his body doesn't necessarily purport that. And you can kind of see a commonality with the Kung Fu Panda itself, right? And then you have other people here like Jackie Chan, and I think it's Angelina Jolie. Um, uh, so on and so forth. So, it's David Cross, I can't remember. And this is Lou, I think. And the God, was it Seth Rogen? Is that his name? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But they obviously will. You can take the animal and then give them the human quality. So usually what you do is you just try to make them look somewhat like them. So here again we have. And here's an example. I think that this is a good halfway mark. You can go a little bit too far. Like this definitely looks like Will Smith. This is Jack Black. I can kind of see a commonality here. Like they kind of have some similarities. Um, I think is it Renee Zellweger, Angelina Jolie? Angelina Jolie wasn't in this one. I don't remember. But um, so you can see they will try to, but this one I don't think is quite as successful because it's kind of scary looking. Um, but again, it's just the idea is that if you if you if you ever are tasked with creating an animal character, even if you don't know who the actor is, or there isn't going to be an actor, maybe they don't talk, I highly, highly suggest either in your mind, you don't even have to tell anybody, but find a person, somebody that you would know, or an actor that you would infuse into them. Because what it'll do is it will push that animal character beyond the generic impression you have of an animal, right? Now, if it's like a dog, you could base it off your own dog, right? That makes sense. And or if it's a squirrel and you have a squirrel in your backyard, you can base it off like another animal that you know. But if you can utilize a person that will actually help with the design as well as the performance later on. So it's always a really good idea to have some sort of you have to have a touchstone of some sort, and having a human on the back end definitely helps. And obviously, if it's a larger production and they do have a human, like a star, an actor playing the part, then you would totally want to utilize that actor. Now you can go the other way as well. I don't have a really good example here, but you can, if you have humans, this is particularly useful for animation, give them animal qualities. Like let's say you're supposed to have a character and he's a bully at a high school or something. You could make that bully look a little bit like a gorilla, right? Because they have like this big kind of strong man. Or maybe you have another character, again, all humans, and it's a kid and he's got to do this big race, right? You could probably infuse some like tortoise, qualities into that student. or you have a little sneaky character, you can make them like a fox or like a rat or something. Um, when you utilize those qualities, it'll help with the general design of the character as well. So, because those animals themselves have those physical qualities that give them that appearance. So when you look at a turtle, it's not very threatening, partly because of the shape, right? It's round, it looks slow. But if I have a character that's going to be really fast, a cheetah looks fast. So if I infuse cheetah properties into that character, they're going to look fast. And so utilizing those definitely helps. It also is super helpful as an acting device. Like big famous actors will use that as well. They'll take qualities of animals, particularly if they're doing a character that has a very strong physical presence, that's not as dialogue based. You will see that infused a ton. Charlie Chaplin used to use it a whole bunch, if you know who that is. A lot of silent film stars would utilize animal qualities in their characters that they portrayed, because they couldn't rely on dialogue in order to portray what the inner uh, what the inner monologue was. So hopefully that makes sense. I have a couple articles here you can look at. They kind of talk about some of these things that I'm discussing. Um, yeah.